Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Let's talk a little bit about these puppies right here, fingernails. I've been noticing more people in the comments asking, why do you have long nails on one of your hands, but not the other? And you may not have been around to know that this was originally a guitar channel. So yes, it's to generate tone on the classical guitar. This is the typical way that tone is generated on the classical guitar, so I thought I'd take some time, make a video explaining why I have nails. Do you need nails? Explain why they're shaped the way they are, as well as explain some of the technical aspects that go into actually using nails to generate tone on the classical guitar. So let's start with, do you need nails? And the answer is mostly yes. Almost every classical guitar player you're going to see is going to generate their tone with fingernails of some kind. Now, there is a YouTube channel that is dedicated to playing classical guitar with the flesh only. And indeed, Francisco Tárrega, a very famous classical guitar composer, at least towards the end of his life, played with flesh only. But that might have been because of health issues, not because he liked the tone necessarily. But if you're playing with flesh only, you really only get one tone. Whereas if you're playing with nails, you get a lot more control over your tone. You can have bright and dark tones in one spot. Normally, you learn to play different tones by playing in different places along the string. Ponticello, normale, maybe tasto, and dolce to get this kind of that sweet sound. But if you are playing with nails, you can actually generate a huge variety of tone just in one spot. You can play very bright and very dark, and this is accomplished using proper technique. Let's talk a little bit about the shape of the nail. So this is a shape that it used to be kind of a West Coast thing. Now I think it's a little more popular, but I don't keep track of these things too much anymore. We tend to call this the ramp. This is where it's shorter on one side than the other. The reason that we have this particular shape is to enhance that tonal variety, as you'll see, but also to help you even out your tone and technique. The whole point of the ramp is that when you are touching the string, no matter where you begin your stroke, whether it's free stroke or rest stroke, no matter where you begin it, the string is leaving the nail always in the exact same place on each fingernail. This means that if you're a little bit off with your technique and maybe you touch a little bit shallow, it's still going to sound the same as if you had a full size stroke and you were touching and pulling all the way through the string with a wider stroke. Same thing if you land a little bit on the pad, it's still going to end up sounding right. So it does even off all those little maybe imperfections in exactly where you're touching the string before you begin a stroke. So that's very, very helpful, and it makes the tone always consistent depending on what you're doing. But it also enhances your ability to play with tonal variety. As you play more flat across the strings, you're exposing more of the nail and less of the flesh, and you're also concentrating more of your power on a smaller part of the string, which makes it brighter. Whereas this is spread out more across the string, it deadens some of the higher end and gives you a mellower sound. So just by going from a really straight across the string approach to standard, which is for me about 25 degrees, to maybe even 45 degrees, you can get a wide variety of tones. And this is all in the same spot right behind the sound hole, which is what we call a normale position. So that's the secret behind this nail shape. Now, the important thing here is proper technique. Proper technique is very important. A lot of people who are not familiar with how you actually play classical guitar or lute think that you are grabbing the string from underneath and pulling. That's actually a thing that we call a Bartok pizzicato, where you snap the string against the top of your fingerboard. You can do this on violin as well. But we actually don't do that. So we don't pull from underneath. We have a stroke from the side. So we're actually pushing the string from the side. I like to just get away from the whole concept of pulling the string. It's not like pulling a bow and arrow. We're pushing across the string to generate the tone. And we can do it at a couple different angles, but we're never pulling it from underneath. We can do two kinds of strokes: a rest stroke, which is like that, where we're resting on the string behind, or a free stroke, where we come free of the string and we don't touch it and lets all the strings ring together very nicely. But either way, the difference in angle is like, attack angles maybe 10, 15 degrees. So it really doesn't change the tone very much. should never feel like you're pulling from underneath. But if you were pulling from underneath, I could easily see how somebody could come to the conclusion that like this is going to break your fingernails off. Like it could hurt, especially if your fingernails are not really robust and used to playing. Mine are very resilient and robust at this point because I've been playing for, oh God, I don't even know how many years at this point. But I've been playing for a long time. Your body adapts to it. If you're new to it, you may have thinner nails, more brittle nails. It may feel weirder to play. But if you're playing with proper technique, you won't break them. Indeed, even if you were to apply this technique to, say, a steel string guitar, as long as you're pushing across the string, you'll find that your nails don't just break off when you're playing, and they can actually stand up to quite a bit of play on a steel string guitar. Now, obviously, you're putting your nails against a much harder substance than these, than these wound basses and these nylon strings, so it's going to wear your nails out a lot more quickly. Guys I know who play steel string really extensively, they use acrylic nails because acrylic nails will really stand up to the punishment of steel strings, but they play with the same technique that you play with on a classical guitar, and their nails do not break off. It doesn't hurt their fingers or anything like that. They're able to execute the technique pretty well on a steel string as well, but it is going to wear your nails out a little bit more, just to be warned there. So this tonal variety is very, very advantageous for playing. It gives you a whole lot of different options. You can play with a really pretty balanced tone. And then you can even combine, say, a bright tone. You can combine a bright tone, say, with Ponticello and get a really bright tone, almost nasally. Or you can do a bright tone and have a more dolce sound. Or any combination, more dark but still Ponticello. You can get lots of things. This makes it great for separating out voices in something like the. So something like that where we want this tone, with this little voice on the bass strings, we want that to be pretty dark, and we can get a really bright sound on the trebles to really contrast that. This is important because that line is actually going through the same range as these upper strings being played on like an open E minor chord. So it's really important to be able to use those different varieties. Just opens up your playing to a whole bunch of different level of expression, to be able to play something. Get a lot of different sounds out of whatever you happen to be doing. So it's very, very useful. Now, I'll make a little bit of a note about playing lute. When you play lute, whether you play with nails or not, there's a lot of, discussion about whether you should play with nails or not. For the most part, if you're playing Renaissance or medieval lute, most players that I've met do not play with nails. And there's two reasons for this. The first one is there's some historical significance. It seems like historically people didn't really play with nails, but I think that that's kind of open to discussion. But the main thing is you're playing with a technique that's a little bit different. So whereas we approach the top of the guitar, if you take your bridge up and you go to the top, that's where you should rest your forearm. For me, it's basically at my wrist because I'm a pretty big dude. But when you're playing lute, it's much more back here. And if you're playing back here like this, you get this kind of sound. Then once you get a really steep angle, so with nails, that's going to sound not that great. Lute tends to play for the Renaissance and the medieval period with the thumb behind the index finger, whereas guitar would play the thumb in front of the index finger a little bit. So you have it like this, and instead of playing, IM, you would play it PI. I'm not really a medieval lute player, and I don't practice this technique at all, so I'm not good at it. But that's basically how you would do it, is you do a lot of single lines by by alternating the thumb and the index finger like this. That tends to be a really common technique. Now when you get to Baroque lute, it's a little bit more up for debate because you actually have to play with this more guitar-like hand position because you actually end up with a whole octave of harp strings above your instrument. And so to get to those low basses, you have to have a big open hand to play that full octave of bass strings, which makes you need to have a little bit more of a guitar technique. And that also means you could play with nails as an option with Baroque lute. I play Baroque lute with nails, and that's so I can go between all the various instruments that I happen to be playing. So if you're playing lute, mostly no nails. If you're playing classical guitar, almost entirely nails. You got to play with nails. And if you use this shape, it's going to really help you to do it, as well as the angle that you approach it. You want your palm above the strings, nice and high like me, and you want to go across the strings when you play. You're pushing the strings, not pulling them. You'll be able to do just great. I do have some videos on how to shape your nails. The main thing that you need to know about shaping your nails is you're going to use this guy right here. This is a metal nail file, and you're going to file the whole surface of the nail to get that flat, nice, clean. It's like a flat pick, even though it looks curved. You know, it's curved because the tops of my nails are curved, but it's actually pretty flat if you were to look at it from, say, this angle. You can see it's just like, boop. You know, it's one surface that the string travels across. So I use a metal nail file, and I smooth the nails out with some sandpaper here. For me, I tend to use this. This is 405N, I think. And I realized that this image is actually backwards. I just realized that as Revlon's backwards. I don't usually do it in mirror mode. I don't know why it's doing that today, but whatever. You can imagine I'm a lefty today, or just that you're looking in a mirror for it. So I use this 405N. Another paper I use is 401Q, and I just kind of smooth the nails out with that to get them nice and smooth. So you can play with these on any guitar. In fact, I tend to play a lot of electric guitar and steel string guitar with nails, but it's going to wear them out a little bit. So if that's your exclusive thing, you may have to look at acrylic nails or something like that. Or even ping pong balls. Some people put ping pong ball nails, you know, these glue little pieces of ping pong underneath the nail to strengthen it and kind of enhance the tone. You do get a different tone when you use fake nails, but it is an option. So thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.